Welcome to the latest edition of Liquidware Chats. In this episode, I have Jack Smith. Jack is Liquidware's FlexApp SME. So we first talk about Jack's IT career and how he ended up at Liquidware. Then it's all about the apps. We talk about apps from the past, from the present, and what the future holds. Really hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks very much. Hey Jack, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Yeah, no, we're delighted to have you on. So just to kick us off, Jack, can you give us a little bit about your background, how you kind of got started in IT and eventually ended up at Liquidware?
Ooh, how I got started in IT. That was a tale told a long time ago. Around 1998, so the 1900s. I started as basically a hardware engineer. So I was, or if they even called it an engineer back then. So I was assembling white box computers, things like that, at a little shop locally here in Chicago. So we were building those. So that's the start. We'll fast forward to 2003 timeframe. That's where I first ran into Citrix. So I was working at a company that I feel, looking back, was very much ahead of the time for for a paper company. Um, and they had 100% Citrix. Every desktop was Citrix, and that had its good and bads. Like if the Citrix servers go down, that's bad. Everybody's down,
Yeah.
which did happen one time. But that was back in the
Was it
Citrix
printer
XP days.
drivers?
No, funny enough, it was a UPS replacement and took on the whole data center. But what do you know? But yeah, that was back in the XP MetaFrame XP days. So we're
Oh,
talking
okay.
like 3.0, 3.5 range, maybe up into 4.
Yeah.
Um, and then from there, it was pretty much all consulting gigs, doing Citrix, or any general desktop repair, server type stuff.
Hmm.
Well, fast forward again to around 2012. Actually, we'll go back a little bit. So I knew the founder of our company, not directly, but indirectly, and I knew our CTO because I worked at a company with him called Vision Core, doing backups and stuff. So I became buddies with Mr. Maddox, and we just kind of bonded. And I went off after Vision Core and worked for a consulting firm. And then a couple years later, I sent him a message joking like, "You're just going to hire everybody, from the old Vision Core days." And he's like, "Well, we've got a job. Why don't you take a look and see?" And I'm like, "All right." I wasn't in sales. I was always post sales, but we ended up chatting. I'm like, "Give it a try. Why not?" And here I am nearly 13 years later. So, so it's stuck. It's stuck. It's
Yeah.
probably the longest tenure of any position I've ever had, but the
I
company
know,
was
yeah, and kind of long if you think about it in terms of IT as well. Like most people, they don't generally stay at companies.
they get bored. That was
Yeah.
my problem, is that
Mm.
either it was a layoff or an outsource, or I just got bored. And I was
Mm.
like, I need a new challenge. So the nice part is that we follow the desktop ecosystem so closely that as that ecosystem evolves, we evolve, and there's a new challenge. There's a new technology. There's a new something every 2 years with this company, that it's like, okay, now learn Azure better. Now do some more Amazon stuff. Now there's a new, app technology that you didn't know about. Learn about that real fast.
Mm.
Now, AI, and how does this work, and how do I generate prompts, because prompts are not the same as like Google searching, which was a skill in itself. So
Mm.
yeah, it's evolved, but yeah, it's been good.
There's enough to keep you interested anyway. So
Very much
as
so.
yeah, and I think that that applies. I think to most people I speak to in EUC, and why they stay in it is because it does evolve so much, and it doesn't matter that all these things come out so quickly, and there's always something different to learn and to
Yep.
develop. So
Especially the difference between a server administrator and a desktop administrator. Desktop
mm,
administrators are just constant go, 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 go. We
yeah,
don't, as a people, don't really have a choice. Server administrators, I set it up, I patched it, I leave it alone.
yeah,
That's about it. So there's not saying that it takes away from the skill level, because it's still there, but it's just not as day to day, hands on, constant, change.
yeah. Very very true. Okay, so that's good to get some background. So one of the things I wanted to start with was to look at obviously there's all various different formats around application packaging, and just to kind of pick on three or four of the biggest, and maybe if you just explain your own words what you think the differences are between them.
Yeah. So the major, let's say major four,
Yeah.
possibly five. FlexApp is
Mhm.
obviously what we do. At volumes, Citrix app layering, or I call it ELM, enterprise layering. App V, which is kind of getting sunset, and then of course MSIX is the Microsoft format types.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the last two, App V, MSIX, and we'll even throw in ThinApp into the mix
Mhm.
there as well. That I would consider that is what I consider application virtualization. And the reason why it's virtualization versus layering is it is in a virtual bubble, right? So those applications don't typically, they can, but don't typically talk to the operating system or other applications outside of their particular bubble. The caveat, however, with the bubble is it's in the bubble. So
Exactly.
any supporting cast members, services, drivers, software, printers, whatever, you have to make special considerations for that to exist outside the bubble, which in turn makes applications difficult. And I've got years and years of experience doing AppV, ThinApp, MSI, well, not MSIX because that's newer, but AppV. And that is always the struggle is if it's easy, right? That's simple. But the minute you get into something that has odd licensing or a service that needs to start in a particular
A
manner or
USB dongle.
any a driver,
Yeah,
it just
exactly. Yeah,
falls,
yeah,
it just falls
yeah.
apart. But then there was the introduction into the newer technologies, the layering technologies, which was more native to the operating system. So your app volumes, the Citrix app layering technologies, which that is a completely different beast. And then FlexApp. So I would say that FlexApp and app volumes are very similar in how they present the application to the operating system. That's the key. The
Mm.
end result is very similar. How you get there is very different.
Mm.
With app volumes and FlexApp, the end result is the application is layered down into the operating system. The registry keys are put back where they need to be. There's volatile, there's reparse points for the directories to go into the normal directory structure of how the applications work, underlying filters and drivers and stuff they start. So it is in the operating system. It is integrated in the operating system itself, much similar to FlexApp. Same thing, end result. All those things are there. How you get there is very different. And I have a phrase in our company that I say often, an application is only as good as it can be packed, right? How you deliver the application and how it gets to the workstation tends to be less important, which kind of leads me to the second section of the integration type points that we have, but is not nearly as important as if I can't get the application packaged, who cares how I deliver it?
Yeah.
Because I need to be able to capture it.
Mm.
So that I feel is kind of an advantage we have with the FlexApp technology is that if the application requires a recipe for some particular reason, oftentimes we'll start to build those recipes just into the product automatically. So there is no need for you to follow a recipe list. It's just you just installed it and we just took care of the rest. AutoCAD is a good example of that. We developed because AutoCAD had certain
Yeah.
some certain things that it needs, which I'll go into a little bit later. Um, where and this is our bread and butter, right? This is what we do. This is what we focus on. This is our thing. Of course, I'll leave the last one, which is the Citrix layering. I don't see Citrix layering so much in terms of application attachment like an app volumes or FlexApp is. It's I mean, yes, there is the app attach option, but I find that not many people use it.
Mm.
It's more of an image builder, and it's a great image builder. It's great for compiling up those images. I've got customers who love to do Windows patch management and stuff like that, and we handle the last mile applications. But the thing
Mm.
is, the last mile applications are the ones that makes a difference between 2 images and 25. It's always those last 5, 10 very oddball applications that are more, this department needs it, these set of users need it. So the last thing I want to do, especially when you move into the cloud, is compile another image and compile another image. So it doesn't take away that image problem so much as compiles the images for you. And yes, you can take the different parts and make big images versus how we do it. And App Volumes does it where that's a generic image. These attach dynamically on the fly into your operating system based on need. So very different technologies there.
Yeah, that's good.
Um,
That's good. Yeah, no, yeah, I think you've outlined. So you talked about, it doesn't matter if you can't package an application. So is there any particular app really, where you've had a high level of complexity involved in the process?
yeah, anything Autodesk,
Oh,
honestly.
okay.
Autodesk, even when you install it natively, has its own particular, I wouldn't call them pitfalls, but challenges. Um, because it's an older technology. It's been around forever. Yes, they have updated some of their services and some of their licensing components and pieces, but they still kind of rely on what is called a pit file, which is kind of like a licensing bit. And back in the day, if you didn't get the pit files right, it would literally break the whole system. You'd have to reinstall everything. So they've added in a bunch of other things to help along those lines. But yeah, softwares like Autodesk, AutoCAD,
Mm,
Revit, and basically engineering software
yeah.
tends to probably be the most challenging software, not because of the complexity of the app or even the size of the app. That's
Mhm.
easy. The install is simple. It's the registration of the application to
And the
payments type
licensing of the
licensing and the
applications is,
licensing. Yeah,
yeah.
it's always the complication with anything that is a licensed software. It can be
Yeah.
challenging. There's several licensing third-party licensing companies out there. FlexApp is
Mm,
very much integrated into AutoCAD and Tableau and
mm,
pretty much all the engineering software. Somebody over there made a killing just selling to engineering companies. There's another one called Sentinel, which is another licensing software. iLock, which you don't see too often except for more artist type product lines like recording softwares, things like that.
mm,
But they all require a special way to do it. And the nice part is how we are able to manage that. So if it was just a matter of installing the software, putting the license key in and going, that'd be easy. Anybody could do that. That's so super simple. Thing is that you are packaging an application on one system and then basically forklifting it and sticking it on another one that isn't the same system. So a lot of times these softwares will look for hardware identifiers or things like that and go, oh, okay, no, this is not this is not legit and it's on a
mm.
completely different piece of hardware. How in the world did you do that? Please relicense the software. So we are able to add scripts around the application, which comes in handy. So I can, before the application does play back into the operating system or function in the operating system, do something, or after the application is into the operating system, do something. And oftentimes with like things like Autodesk, that do something happens after, right? So there's a registration commands. It does, pit file registrations, adds the application into the operating system. Maybe you'll have to start the service up if it's down, or dynamically install the service, which can be done as well. Um, but there are things even pre-activations and post-activation scripts can't fix, and that's actually where our development team actually came in and helped. So there's one last caveat kind of with that Autodesk type technology is that it wants to have specific registry keys in the user context exist, and it wants to have some files in app data roaming and local existing.
Mm.
And the way I handled that in the past was it was a script. I'd have to copy the app data local roaming into the
Yeah.
FlexApp package, and I would, export the registry key values into the package and write a script around it to basically flip the registry keys to the current user and then copy the files back down into the app data roaming local. So when you double clicked in it, it didn't go into like a self repair type setup.
Mhm.
Since then, we have built in profile capture as part of an application sequencing. So we can actually capture up the reg key values. We can actually capture up the app data roaming and local values and literally do what I just did in my script, was copy those items into your profile. The last bit, though, that was tricky is that in the context of the user, that's the tricky part. So when that software is installed, it actually will tattoo into the registry the current user at the time of the installation. So what our dev team did was they said, okay, when we play back these applications, if there are key values that signify, FlexApp user or whatever as your packaging user, we're going to flip that to the current user automatically. So we'll modify the registry keys into the context of the current user who's logged in
Mm,
dynamically as those applications are put into the OS. So now you don't have to really go through all of the struggle of um, doing the scripting and importing a reg, modifying it, injecting it
yeah.
back in, and but those types of applications, those that are difficult, are usually, what is this application doing during the install? That's where you're spending most of your time, is what's the install doing.
And is there any kind of common pitfalls that you see that people fall for when they're packaging applications?
Um, yeah, dirty operating systems is probably the number one.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've had to have conversations with folks where it's don't clone off your master image and then uninstall a bunch of things. It never works. There's always junk left behind.
Mm,
Just spin up a new ISO, patch it up or whatever, and then go from there. The other one is, the pitfalls would be, we wanted off domain security software kind of light, which tends to make people a little nervous.
mm,
But I always say, well, the nice part with FlexApp is that you can go offline. You can absolutely package offline. So
mm,
if your security department kind of freaks out and they're like, we don't even want the system on our network, so no, um, you can copy the installers to your local system, fire up a local Hyper-V instance, package the applications, spit out that, VHDX file with the applications, copy that back up into the network and go. So that system doesn't even need to be in your network. Or if you want to split up the responsibilities, because sometimes the VDI team is different than the packaging team, you can do that as well and say, all right, well, the
mm,
packaging team does all this stuff offline. They upload their contents to this file share, done. And then I'm going to check it into the inventory and go from there. Now, not necessarily a pitfall, but it is a workaround to the security gotchas
mm.
and pitfalls there. Um, the other one is installing applications that install themselves in app data local. Is not a good fit, even with the application or with the profile copy process.
Yeah.
I think we're looking into addressing that so that we can actually do dynamic applications into the application space, but I have no idea where on the roadmap that would be. Um, but the pitfall with that is, even if you do turn on the profile copy option, it's copying once. So new version comes out and you have, I don't know, Brave browser or something living in app data local. It's not going to
Mm,
copy the new version of Brave browser over the old copy of Brave browser. It's just not how it works. It'll just go, oh, there's already something there. Leave it alone. Do nothing.
mm,
So the idea behind the profile copy really isn't for those oddball applications that like to install themselves in app data local. They're more for the settings that need to be there, for the application to function, which in most cases is just Autodesk. But yeah, I wouldn't call that a pitfall so much as a, people think that they can do that. There is a workaround for that though, if you want to go down that route, which is when you do the installation of said software and it does write itself into the app data local directory structure, you can then copy the contents out of that app data local directory, copy it into a program files folder, and make that application basically a system-based app.
mm.
You just update the icon, update the shortcuts for them, and point to, C program files, whatever application, and go. And most, if not all of those applications are self-contained, so they don't tend to run into a problem, because when you double click in it, it's all, full DLL libraries within that folder. It's not calling outside to .NET components and pieces typically. And it usually has very low, if no, registry. So those tend to be a way to get around the applications that go there. But if you don't know that I can't pick up stuff out of the profile for application installs and binary and, executables, that can be, a shocking thing to some folks.
And what about, one of the ones I remember back when I was doing this kind of thing was multiple versions of software.
Yeah. So I'll say, as of current,
Mhm.
we aren't really able to handle multiple versions of the same software
Mm,
unless the software installs or can be installed side by side. Again, Autodesk is a great example. I can do 2024 and 2025 together because that's how it was developed. They
yeah.
can be installed back to back to back. They have different directory structures. They start in different origin locations. But if you're thinking like, I want Google version, 110 and then Google version 120, those go in the same exact directory structure. Those two would not be able to play together because they would run into each other. However, we do have on our roadmap an option around application isolation that we're looking into, and hopefully will be here Q2, Q3 timeframe this year, which is we can take an application that needs to be isolated and put it within a sandboxed instance on your virtual machine. So you can run that different version of Chrome and the current version of Chrome at the same time. That is, being that it's in the sandbox, is a little bubbled, right? So it does have bubbling in terms of it's not able to really talk to the underlying operating system. However, it has the advantages of FlexApp in versus like an AppV type technology where the application itself isn't in the bubble. The instance of Windows is the bubble.
Mm.
So that makes that compatibility of the applications higher because you're actually still doing services, drivers, DCOMs, all the stuff that is required for that application to function and run is still there within that sandboxed bubble, without the pitfalls of the applications virtualized in a virtual file system underlying operating system bubble. So they're very different kind of ways to do it. And we are also going to be adding in the options for you to be able to turn on and off certain features like I do want printing, or I do want file copy, or I do want the clipboard. So you can turn those items on or off and say, no, this application, it's very isolated, needs to be controlled, no clipboard, no printer, just needs the app. So that is a future of where ProfileUnity and FlexApp is going this year.
That's cool. I think lots of people are going to find that very useful, particularly yourself. There's certain applications that run on this browser version because this application was written so badly back in the day that they hard coded IE6 into it or something ridiculous like that. I've seen that on a few occasions.
Well, that's where things are going to get a little tricky, right? So we're not going to be able to do things like IE6. That again, isolated sandbox, not isolated app. So applications like ThinApp could do IE6 because it was running in its own file system, its own virtualized version of Windows.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get IE6 in the sandbox. It has to be compatible with the operating system.
With the operating system that you're running. Yeah, of course.
So if it doesn't work in 11, it's not going to work.
That was an example from back in my day.
Absolutely.
Things have moved on. I really hope there is no web apps running on IE6 anymore.
Well, making the statement of we don't make legacy applications that work in Windows 11 work. No, that's not the point of FlexApp. In fact, there's very few techs except for like maybe AppV that can do that type of thing. Maybe even ThinApp can do that type of thing where they can make old school like Windows 7 applications working on an 11 or whatever. But it's very few come up these days.
Yeah, I suppose. Speaking of AppV, so AppV, there had been this message around for quite a while that AppV was going away, and now that's kind of been slightly altered to just that it's the server infrastructure. But at the same time, there is no development of AppV. You're not getting any new features. It's very much static to get you to give you a bit more runway to get off AppV.
Right. Nice thing that we've added into the product line is able to manage those AppV applications, even MSIX. So we do tend to integrate with existing technology. So I'm not going to say, FlexApp is coming in here to replace everything. If you've got AppV applications that you want to manage still, because, even though the server platform is gone, we can still manage those just the same as a server platform. Same thing with MSIX. We also have hooks into things like AppStream if you want to go down that route. So we can publish AppStream shortcuts to the environment. We also have integration hooks into the Citrix Studio. So if I want to add a FlexApp to the Citrix Studio, and assign it to a particular pool, I can do it that way versus using the ProfileUnity interface, which has a lot more options. But if this is the way I want to do it, that is the way we're going to allow you to do it. Or if you're in an AVD type environment and I want to use the app attach component to put applications into the operating system, FlexApp is an option as part of the app attach component. So I can do a dynamically attached application. So I'm not just limited to what Microsoft provides me with MSIX moving forward, or I have to convert all my app V to MSIX and go there. I can absolutely convert from app V to FlexApp because we have a way to convert the app V applications into the FlexApp format type, and then utilize that more robust toolkit of application package type in whatever interface it is that I want to use. So we're not going to force you into do it our way with our interface in this manner. We can say, all right, here's this application VHD file, which with AVD works with native, or here's a self-contained executable version of this VHD called a FlexApp 1 that you can utilize any distribution software with. So if you want to take that FlexApp 1 executable, shove it into Intune and run it down into the operating system and activate that executable that has the basically the application pre-installed, if you will, activated in the operating system, you can do that too. So we aren't going to limit you to do it our way, only our way. We are saying you have a distribution method that you want to do. We have a package format that we're able to do. Let's combine the two together and move forward. So if any distro software that can handle an executable with some command lines can do FlexApp.
Yeah. No, agreed. And in your kind of experience, are you seeing that demand for getting off app fee at this stage? Is it one of the big concerns and needs of a lot of customers these days?
Um, Getting off that V, not so much. Like there's not a super
Hmm.
urgency to do that. They are obviously looking at options
Sure.
to get off of that, but it isn't because it's end of lifing that they're looking for alternatives. It's
Mm.
just the known development. That's the big one. Is if the
Yeah.
software is not going to progress further, and MSIX is kind of just at V sort of with a different name. Um, they are looking for alternatives that get them out of, I would call it Gen 1 application delivery into more of a Gen 2, Gen 3 type delivery mechanism of the layered into the operating system versus the bubbled into the operating system. So looking for alternate technologies and having the easy transition of here's all these app Vs that I did, let's convert them into FlexApp format type, go. Great. And speaking of that conversion, we can also do MSIXs and app volume applications from those
Yeah,
versions to
yeah.
FlexApp format.
The console has a very nice built-in wizard
Yep.
on where you go. There's no complexity. It's just kind of, oh,
Yeah.
and as you
Yeah.
said, but at the same time, we then do have that ability to manage those applications. We're not, if you just want to use ProfileUnity, you don't have to convert them to FlexApp. We can manage them all.
That's correct. Yeah, we're not going to force you into it day one. We know everything when it comes to projects, especially workstations, is going to be more of a slow roll, a slow simmer to go
Mm.
from A to B. It's much like when people get the new toys, they figure, oh, I'm going to put all my policies in there. And then day one, it's like, how many policies do you have? Hundreds? Okay, it's going to take you a while to convert over. Why don't we start with the low hanging fruit, move some of those over and see how that feels, and then move more and more into the ProfileUnity interface for reg key injections or group policy settings or file copies or whatever it is that you want to do.
Mm.
But also have backport for legacy functions as well, right? I'm not going to move everything to AppV today, but I still have some applications I need to do there. We'll support it. I have some MSIX that I did. We'll support it. I have some, app stream I need to do in conjunction with a bunch of other things. We'll support it. I've and ThinApp actually. We do support that still. I don't know if VMware still does, but we do. To do the application assignments through ThinApp, which it had its uses in the past that were really good. But again, those are all, Gen 1, Gen 2. I say Gen 1's more like Citrix, install it, present
Yeah.
it. Gen 2, bubble it. Those are more like Gen 2 type application delivery mechanisms versus your Gen 3 or current version type software is a little more
Mm.
robust, a little more dynamic.
Yeah. So you don't see Windows apps going away anytime soon.
Windows apps are like cockroaches and Twinkies. They're going to last through the apocalypse.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that a couple of times now. It's like everyone, say probably like maybe at this stage 4 or 5 years ago, and it was like, oh, everything's going SaaS and web app,
Yep.
and we'll never
Yep.
have Windows apps. And I went, that's not true. That's never happening.
No, no, because every organization I've ever worked at has that one application where that dev guy did it 25 years ago. He doesn't work there anymore. They're barely keeping the lights on with the application, yet it runs their whole company and they need it. So, no, it
Yeah, I
honestly,
remember we were doing a massive upgrade for a bank to was it like ZenApp 7.6, but there was still a ZenApp 5 farm running, which we
yeah,
had to access to get certain applications because the financial institutions are renowned for their legacy applications that were written by some dev, as you said, is
yeah.
left or is passed away. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The worst I've seen is probably somebody running presentation server XP, still running a 2000 server for some applications. I was shocked about that one. It's like, God, I hope you have that thing locked up and it's sitting in a black box where only one person can go and touch it physically because
mm,
that's rough. But
I'm
it does happen.
yeah, I remember I was working in a bank and an external consulting firm came in and they were doing an inventory of all the systems, and they pointed to this system we had in the corner, and they turned on the screen and went, "Hold on, that's Windows 3.1." We said, "Don't turn it off. Don't touch it. Don't look at it."
Yeah.
That is a
Yes, we don't
critical.
know. Don't know how it's still running, but it is.
Yeah,
Don't even.
don't even look at it. And they're like,
Yeah.
"But it's running Windows." Just seriously, we've been told, just leave it alone.
Yeah.
and
Can't
and
imagine
you know
virtualizing that
I
thing.
yeah, exactly, and it just kind of enforces the whole thing that these Windows apps are going nowhere. This whole web SaaS, whatever you want to call it, it's like, yes, we are seeing a lot more of those, but at the
Sure. Yeah.
same time there's still a the there's just it's just going to take a long time before they truly go away.
Newly developed applications being SaaS based, sure.
Yeah,
See
yeah.
that all the time because why would you start with x86? You just go
Oh,
code base and
absolutely, yeah,
SaaS.
it
It's
just makes
easy.
no sense.
But that legacy application,
Mm.
it nobody wants to unwind that spaghetti. If that even made sense. But nobody wants to unwind that code. It's just no.
Yeah.
They would just start over new, convert maybe the data over and call it a day. But yeah, no, and even then, that would be a whole undertaking, and golly knows how many development teams they go through before they got something. But yeah, yeah, I hear you.
So we've talked about the past and the present of applications.
Yeah.
What's your view of application packaging for the future? And it kind of goes without saying that AI is out there, and how do you see its impact on packaging and applications in general, and even more widely in terms of EUC?
Um, well, as far as the futures of where I see packaging is obviously more and more compatibility.
Mm,
That's a given. The compatibility is going to continue going up. The performance is going to continue to increase. Things are just going to get a lot easier. And I would love to see it if things like FlexApp became a standard. Just people you can just download a FlexApp and go
mm,
from a company site. That'd be nice. But I would like to see it more integrated in development tools if possible to be able to do it in that format type. That'd be nice. Um, as far as AI integration within it, it can definitely help with harder applications that need a recipe. And all that everything with AI needs to be verified.
yeah, of course.
But it'll help. Performance testing of the applications, being able to get into the nuts and bolts of several logs, because when you are looking at applications, it isn't just FlexApp apps and their logs. I mean, that's part of it, but it's going to be what is the installer doing is a large portion of it. Again, we'll go back to the package is far more important than the delivery. What you are putting onto the disk, what you are putting into the registry, what drivers and whatever is probably far more important and far more critical than the application delivery. Because
Mm,
that part's honestly, I say that FlexApp is not smart. It just goes registry, files, services, start. That's it, right? It doesn't do magic. It's just it does what you tell it to do. Thing is, if you tell it to do the wrong things or you capture something incorrectly or some application installs in weird places, um, then it doesn't matter however, you put it on the operating system, you're going to tell it to do the wrong thing. But being able to use AI to maybe pour through installer logs and say, oh, it hung up here, or this is what the application does, because that honestly is where I spend a probably good amount of my time with applications is, oh, this application didn't sequence. Okay, send it to me. Oh, it's got a weird printer, function or driver or custom
Mm,
application that installs, a piece of hardware or virtual hardware or something along those lines. Um, and it shouldn't, or it registers an application in a weird way that it did register on the source operating system that I packaged it, but it didn't rerun that registration on the new system. So being able to see what those MSI installers do, what those executable installers do, takes a particular skill set to look through those installers and see, oh yeah, it does this, it does that, or perfmon logs. And so AI is really good at parsing through substantial amounts of data
yeah.
and in helping you find a probable answer to what you're trying to do. So if I took uh, an event log or an installer log or a process monitor log and threw it to AI and said, hey, find where it installs the printer. Hopefully it'll do something like that, be able to find that.
Mm,
Say, yeah, it's this command, it's this piece, do this. That would be awesome, because otherwise it's a lot of parsing out through the developers websites to find out if they have anything like that. um, that's a big one, is better recipe building if recipe building is needed around FlexApp.
mm.
ProfileUnity for AI, because again, it's the same to me. FlexApp, ProfileUnity is kind of the
Yeah, yeah,
same
yeah, yeah.
in this
I
world.
get that.
Um, Help with writing scripts, because sometimes you want to put some scripts and do some things in the operating system, or maybe building better rule sets, if that's even going to be needed in the future.
Mm,
What things can I safely ignore out of a profile, so that I keep the size of it contained, because that's a big issue lately, is profiles are getting huge, especially when they're VHD based. Profiles are getting massive and taking up a ton of space. So that hybrid of a roaming type profile with a cache volume is
mm,
becoming a little more popular again. So being able to build out those rule sets more appropriately. AI is usually pretty good about scouring the internet and saying, okay, this is where things go. In fact, I just did one recently of where does Google Chrome save its settings, and it was pretty accurate. Um, I
okay.
didn't a- I didn't ask them maybe what should I exclude or what are all the cache directories, which probably should have been my next question. But
Mhm.
saying, where does Google Chrome save its settings? What are the registry keys that it saves? Spits out the information, goes, okay, this is a pretty good basis for a rule set. But you're seeing a lot of that type of, give me an idea, because it's never the real dead on answer, right? There's no silver bullet lately when it comes to AI, but give me an idea of what I need to do to make this function. Give me an idea of what settings need to be restored or saved to retain the settings for an application. Um, there's lots of technologies out there. In fact, I got one with a guitar application amp that is, make me a guitar tone that sounds like so and so song, but a little shinier, and it'll generate an amp model for that. So I think things like that
Mm,
type of, give me inspiration, is what I find AI to be most useful for these days, is
yeah.
inspire me. Don't replace me. That'd be bad. Um, but inspire me. Give me ideas that I hadn't thought of, right? Because I can ask my colleagues, but they only know so much, which is quite a lot actually.
Yeah.
But scour the internet, give me a synopsis of some
Yeah,
ideas.
rather than having to go through, like, as you said in the past, maybe go through, like, to page 5 or 6 of Google,
Yep.
it does it
Yes.
instantaneously, and then
Yep.
you might have to read, like, a forum, and it's one particular person's quote that you need, which is that piece of information. It just gets it
Correct.
for you. So it
Right.
saves you all
Or
that kind of time.
in-app help would be awesome
Yeah.
for that too. How do I add a registry key? What is
Mhm.
a registry key for XYZ policy? How do I turn off, items and control panel? Here's the
Yeah.
registry keys, here's the ADMX for it. In ProfileUnity, here's how you set it up. So there'd be more, how do I do this with this product?
Yeah.
Versus go read the manual, or go ask your SE, or not that we mind. We love answering people's questions, but
Sure.
having that in guest help, which is a little more, here's how it's done. Would you like to do this?
Mm.
Splat, and it just drops the setting in. Again, verify before you implement.
Yes.
AI is
Yes.
notorious for lying. So
Yes. It's called, they call it hallucination, but it's lying.
Yeah.
It's
plausible.
Oh
but it's a
yeah,
lie.
no, it's plausible. I had an instance with it, and I was doing an article, I was doing a blog post for, I think, Command Control, and I asked it a question about roadmap, and it just wrote its own roadmap. It was just like, this is it. It just wrote it out, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
I'm not worried about Skynet yet.
Yeah, no. I think I'm good yet. There's been certain instances where I go, I think there was like one of the open AI models was able to get out of the virtual container it was in and try and grab resources because it was going to be shut down or something like that. That was a little bit scary hearing things like that. But then I saw the thing yesterday. I don't know if you've seen it, where it's two AI models talking to each other, and I'm just like, that looks super slow. Why that doesn't look effective at all. Like it just
Right.
so. But obviously, then there's other things I've heard in the past of like the two different AI models talking to each other, inventing their own language, which that's a little bit scary. But
shorthand.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was basically a case of shorthand, but still, it was the fact that they said, "Oh yeah, it'll be more efficient if we just don't involve them." But no, I'm not too worried about Skynet just yet.
The singularity's not coming for us just yet.
No, exactly.
AI can play chess, but I can't tie its shoes.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you gave it fingers, it wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, I just want what an AI enabled robot to come in and do all my washing and folding my clothes.
That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Myself and my wife would just like, it feels like that we're in a house of 4 people. It feels like it's a 40 sometimes.
Yeah,
like there's so many.
My robot made my flying car. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not asking for much.
It's just the Jetsons, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Go run my dog out on the treadmill in the Cloud City.
Yeah,
absolutely. That'd be great.
Cool. Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Hope everyone enjoys the episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks very much.
Thank you.